Hi, and a huge welcome to you, my lovely listener. So glad you're here. Today, you are joining me for a chat with Saduk. Saduk is a growth and AI operator and founder of Bloomberry AI. Building Bloomberry, how did you end up there, and how far along are you?
Well, I ended up there, man, because honestly, I am really sick of generic AI content. Number two, there's so many talented senior people out here that when they use this generic AI content, it literally dumbs them down and makes them sound more generic. I know it sounds like tripe, but I really believe in authenticity. And I really believe that voice is the last moat. Your authentic voice at the end of the day. Uh, That's how I ended up there. We're only 2 months in, but we've already managed to organically scale up a pretty decent user base. Um, we're about to get an advisor from a Fortune 500 company. We already have 3 employees. So it's starting off pretty good. Hopefully, ends pretty good.
And how does it actually work? How can I imagine it? What's the output that I get when I use Bloomberry?
Yeah, well, you can think of it as your end-to-end content distribution system. And really, it's designed for executives, founders, solopreneurs. The way it works is literally it learns your voice over time. And so the more you use it, the smarter it gets. What you can expect from it is at some point, really, my vision for this is that it will become your full autonomous agent for all your digital presence. As of today, you can either put a thought in there, you could put a link in there, you could take a full article, and you could basically give it your thoughts on it, and it'll extend that out into a full content ready and published LinkedIn post, X post, Facebook post. Um, but it goes beyond that. Then once it learns your voice, it becomes really your PR in a sense, your own personal PR. Meaning, using your authentic voice, you can then start scaling that out across all the different channels. You start digitally building your digital presence. And we all know in this AI world with LLMs, scraping the data and everything else. For instance, for me, I started posting 6 months ago, back when Bloomberry was kind of a little concept. It wasn't even a full user facing UI system, as you can call it today. Uh, And already I'm being cited by Gemini. Already I'm being cited for the research that we did, where we actually coined the term AI sentence DNA, meaning actual structure of how AI usually generates its content. Uh, and so stuff like that. I mean, it's pretty exciting. I think for a lot of people in the Silicon Valley, it's hard to grasp right now because a lot of the feedback I get is, why don't I just use ChatGPT? Or why don't I just use, something else? Well, number one, first of all, whatever you get from ChatGPT, it's not going to know if you even posted that or not. Okay. And so it doesn't even add to your content library. Number two, it doesn't track your voice. I guarantee you right now, if you're listening to this podcast, go into ChatGPT, tell it you're an expert at something, and give it whatever you have in terms of, your past history and all your expertise. I guarantee you it will start with, most teams start blah, 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 but really it's blah, blah, blah. And it's the most generic thing in the world. I mean, I've seen it over and over again. I don't know if I even answered your question. But that's really why I started it. That's how far along we are. And my vision for this is to become fully autonomous, a full agent, acts on your behalf. At some point, I want it to be an actual agent that goes through your accounts and actually starts to build and nurture relationships and community. Because at the end of the day, I really believe in authenticity. And I really believe that people buy from people they trust. And if you're producing generic AI content, they won't trust you. At this point, people are almost trained to skip over that stuff. I am, at least. I mean, as soon as I see any post, literally that starts with most something, 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 but really it's this, or like, you don't have a X problem, you have a Z problem. I'm skipping over that because I know for a fact ChatGPT wrote that. Claude gets a little bit better sometimes, but it's still, very, very guilty of that as well. And so really with Bloomberry, we've identified already at this point, 7,000 plus cadences, structures, words, phrases that AI is constantly using. And really have at this point systematically built out a system that's not really necessarily prompt engineering, but a full framework to not only prevent that to happen, but to understand, learn your voice over time, and then understand, and then build your content library.
Really interesting. And do you have paying users already? Well, how far along are you in the build process?
Yeah, we do. And so we're only 2 months in. You have to remember, I'm building this end to end, literally the whole product, all the distribution. We already have 3 employees. We do have some paying users. I don't know if I mentioned, one of our users is a VP at a Fortune 500 company. He loved it so much. He literally asked to become an advisor. And so we're going to bring him on very soon to become our advisor. And I mean, it's been a crazy ride, man, because this is the first time I'm doing something at this, I hope to be at scale. Yeah, it's going well. It's going pretty well so far.
And how do you finance it? I think that's also interesting. If you have employees, you need some money to do it. Is it self-funded, bootstrap now? Did you already bring in investors? Where are you at?
I'm not ready for investors and I don't want them, dude. To be honest with you, I'm seeing a huge trend in Silicon Valley right now where venture-backed companies are under so much pressure. I know so many founders that, frankly, just seem burnt out because of all the pressure that they're receiving from all these venture-backed companies. I've been bootstrapping this from day one. At some point, once we start scaling, my background is in performance marketing. So, you're talking to somebody who loves big budgets, big resources. But at the end of the day, like at this point, if I can keep this organic as possible, my money, bootstrapping it, I'd like to do that as best as I could until at least, we get to a point where it's, worth scaling. But at this point, there's so many things in this product that I still want to add. And again, going back to your question about users, I have been laser focused on all the user feedback that I get. And so as soon as and I'm so thankful for that, by the way, if there's any founders listening to this, if any user, if you have even one user, by the way, who requests a feature, drop everything you're doing, make sure you address it, and just make them feel powerful at the end of the day. Plus it's going to add to your product, it's going to make your product a lot better. And chances are a lot of users will probably end up, also asking for the same feature.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think early stage growth is very different from later stage growth once you have figured things out more. How did you get your first users? I think a lot of people struggle with this part.
So I got lucky, to be honest with you. My first user was actually the first paying user too. And it's so ironic because the reason I got him, and this is also a very, very good tactic. I'm sure you use this too, or I'm sure a lot of people on Twitter use this. But it's commenting and building community, right? My first ever comment from the Bloomberry LinkedIn account, literally on day 2 of launch, I had commented on a user's post. He clicked through to the LinkedIn profile. We had maybe 3 followers at the time. He clicked through the site. He signed up and he converted immediately. Which is insane. And so for me, that was either like a sign from God, like, all right, man, I gotta keep doing this. But ironically, I haven't been able to even scale that tactic yet, since then, just because of how much we have going on, and how fast and quickly we're growing this thing in terms of the actual infrastructure, the actual system, and really our distribution tactics have changed a bit. But I would love to go back to that. Anyone listening, if you are bootstrapping it yourself, don't underestimate the power of tactically and strategically commenting and following on all your perceived ICP, all your ideal customer profile qualified audiences. That's really how I got my first user. And again, he signed up immediately, which was crazy. I mean, we were on day 2 of launch. We had 3 followers on the LinkedIn account.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And I think there's such a magic in that moment when somebody actually uses what you built. I think that it's pretty amazing, whatever it is you're doing. before starting to build, I think you have a history with a number of both software companies, but also esport teams. Maybe we start with this. How did you end up at Bloomberry? What the path that brought you there?
My path has been very unconventional. Not your typical Silicon Valley AI growth operator path. I honestly give credit to my early start, which was, and by the way, this business model probably doesn't exist anymore. But straight out of high school, I started at a small company. If you're in the Silicon Valley, you probably know of it. It's called Fry's Electronics. And I started on the retail sales floor, commission only. You basically sell or you go home broke. And that's how I started to understand that to convert a user, you really, really need to get them to trust you. And to do that, you got to make them feel powerful. Like at the end of the day, you got to make them feel powerful. You got to make them feel like this is going to be a life-changing purchase. How you message that, how you communicate that, over time, you start iterating and you start understanding what sticks and what works. But that really gave me the understanding of how to read people in person and really how to build that authenticity. And so you can almost say, like, I learned performance marketing backwards. I mean, that's really how I started to understand how to sell. That led me to, a couple internships in marketing. Eventually ended up at Fanatics, where I would say I really understood the power of licensing and merchandise and infrastructure at scale. Fanatics, as you know, I think they signed like a 20-year deal with the NFL shop, meaning that they are the sole and exclusive people or company to even be able to sell licensed sports merchandise on NFL shop, NBA store, NHL shop, all the different team sites. That was a huge strategic play from a company that, by the way, also started in retail sales in a shopping mall in Jacksonville. And so I was there for 4 years. That gave me so much inspiration. Again, I was so lucky. My whole career has been so lucky, man. I joined that company. That company was a spinoff of eBay, and it had one of the most talented teams you can ever imagine. Half these people ended up at some really crazy companies, C-level, C-suite, VPs, and all that, et cetera. And I got to learn from under them, plus this whole infrastructure and merchandise at scale. So, that led me there. After Fanatics, obviously, I think it was Google, and then Procore, Pure Storage, and then Air Wallex. And so I've had a very healthy mix of B2C, B2B, sales. I got lucky, man. And I took advantage of a lot of that.
I think your last step before going on your own was Air Wallex, and you were heavily driving paid growth. If there's a founder who has been working on organic growth for now, maybe also doing things that don't scale, doing outreach themselves, they are now thinking about advertising. What should they think about? What should they do? What shall they not do? Yeah.
Don't even touch it until you figure out what works. And to do that, you have to do a lot of manual stuff that doesn't scale first. Iterate constantly, and design a framework for your iterations. In other words, what we did at Air Wallex, and kind of going back to your question about performance marketing, every single test that we ran, we either killed in 7 days if it didn't perform at a CPA goal, or let it ride. But to get there, I mean, Air Wallex has so much budget and infrastructure and resources. If you're not there yet, I would honestly say just start building out your organic reach. Outreach is cool. I don't know. Me personally, I don't like DMing. That's why I actually hired a salesperson to do that themselves. It's just not where I feel like your time is most valuable. If you're a solopreneur or founder, I really believe that you should do founder-led content marketing first, kind of like what I'm doing right now with you, right, on this podcast, where you can actually start distributing your ideas, distributing your way of thinking. Hopefully people resonate with that. And it kind of goes back to just building that trust. But the first things first is start with SEO. programmatic SEO, build that infrastructure, all your internal linking. If you can get some backlinks, that's great too. But I found that internal linking and really the infrastructure that you can build with SEO and programmatic is super crucial. And just post, man, post consistently. Get all the channels going. Use Bloomberry, a shameless drop, because what it does is it'll start scaling out your voice across all those different channels. You don't even have to think about it. And then you can focus on other things like infrastructure and product and hiring. But I would say, honestly, don't even touch performance marketing until you actually kind of find what sticks, if you're very limited on budget, at least.
Yeah, for me, I'm not that deep into performance marketing. What do you mean? Can you give an example of what sticks? What does it mean? What would be something like an indicator that I should now switch?
Great question. You will pick up very early on what resonates based off of reach. Vanity metrics are great, likes and whatever, and engagement, that's cool. But honestly, I found that a lot of people have a decent community probably already built up. If it's like your ex coworkers or whoever it is, that's fine. But if you start getting engagement from strangers that you've never even heard of, if you start noticing that your analytics, you're getting a lot more distribution for a certain post or a certain messaging tactic, or even a certain infographic or visual or style, lean more into that and start iterating based off of that. And so for us at Bloomberry, I think when we first started, a lot of the messaging that we did was like scheduling. And the problem is it's such a saturated market, dude. Like there's so many other apps that also have scheduling. And so very quickly realized, okay, well, what's our actual, reasons to do business with us? Well, we can scale your authentic voice. And based off of that, you can start iterating. So, really it's about shamelessly testing every single angle that you have. If you're building a product, think about every single outcome-based solution, and then just start posting about them. Take different angles. Try a visual, try a video, try a carousel, and then basically just keep iterating. So it's a lot of manual work at first. Do the stuff that doesn't scale at first, and then you will eventually find something that does.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then and I agree that it probably changes over time how you acquire your customers. If I now think about, once again, paid ads, right? Do you have like a revenue on your mind where you would say you should start with it, or below something like that, don't even consider it, and after X million in revenue per year, you can do it, or a few $100K? What do you think?
Sorry, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's probably, I could imagine that there's a change over time when you say I've reached a certain revenue number, for example, where you'd say maybe ads would make sense. Maybe they never make sense. I think there are some people out there, especially in the indie hacker space, who have tried paid ads and are completely against it. They say it doesn't work for me. They do only organic content. But do you have a feeling like that at a revenue number where you'd say, okay, at this revenue number, if I want to fuel growth, paid ads work, and it's probably worth investing in them?
Well, I think start smart. I mean, either way, if you're at 10,000 in revenue, 1 million in revenue, 10 million in revenue, it's all the same. Start smart. Start with Google. Start with your lower acquisition funnel based kind of approach. Start with very long tail, highly compartmentalized keyword groupings. Because the thing is, likely people are probably not going to be searching your company name. They don't even know it exists, right? Obviously, you're going to be you're going to want your brand terms covered, but start with super generic, long tail keywords, super specific. Go exact. Go phrase match. Do TCPA, right? And so you always want to bid for the actual cost per acquisition. Lower your TCPA if you have to, if you have a very limited budget. and then just start scaling it. Start with your lower funnel, bottom of funnel kind of tactics. Google scales. Bing is very cheap. A lot of people are not on Bing. As a matter of fact, at Air Wallex, we noticed that almost 90% of the competition that was within our auction insights, taking our search impression share, didn't exist on Bing. And so you can get a fraction of the cost, your cost per click, at least on Bing. But I would say start there. A lot of people start with Facebook ads. And again, this kind of goes back to, if you have a very good, highly performing organic creative on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, test that first. Test that first and start actually promoting it. Don't do a boost. At this point, creative is the new targeting. AI is getting to a point where it's smart enough to understand the creative. And so it's smart enough to serve it to your actual qualified audience. And as a matter of fact, at a highly regulated place like Fanatics, we were actually under a special ads category. You probably know about this if you're in FinTech, where you lose access to a lot of ability to target audiences. And so, for instance, you're not able to do your CRM audiences. You're not able to do retargeting if you're in a special ads category like finance. And so creative really has become the new targeting. And so, find what scales first in terms of your organic. Let's say you posted something, an image or a visual or infographic or video, and it outperforms all your previous ones. That would be a good place to start actually testing into, Facebook and LinkedIn. LinkedIn, although I will say, is getting a little bit more expensive now. But really, just be super systematic with this stuff. Test a lot, but start very, very lower funnel, bottom of funnel kind of ads like Google and Bing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I remember that on one of the first tools I launched like a long time ago, I just wanted to get some traffic, so I did some Google ads. Never worked out that well, so I wouldn't recommend it early stage. I think you have to go the hard route and just somehow find people and talk to them. But later on, I've personally never seen ads really work on a small scale. Like, I think it's probably a different story once you have a brand and you can especially also drive competitor traffic to you. I think it's really, really hard early stage, to be honest. That's my feeling.
It depends on the industry, man. I remember I had an e-commerce store back in 2017, and Google Shopping was my primary driver for revenue. We had a month of, I think our top month was like 60K, but this was during November. So obviously Black Friday. And the majority of that came from Google ads. Obviously Facebook is going to play into it too, but be super, super conscious of your down funnel metrics. Make sure your attribution is correct. A lot of people think that, Facebook is helping, when sometimes if you actually look at the down funnel metrics and the actual model, there are no, significant touch points from Facebook that actually end up becoming, your bottom of funnel converters. But again, it depends on the industry. Look, if you're in SaaS right now, I wouldn't touch ads. Man. Do outreach, do organic, start with a few users, talk to people that you think in your industry could actually use what you have, find what sticks, and then, go from there. But again, it depends. It depends on the industry. I honestly, if you're in e-commerce, go for it. Go for shopping always, because that's very high intent. But if you're in like a SaaS, I'm still figuring that out myself, because I'm bootstrapping this at the end of the day.
Yeah, quite interesting. And it also sounds very different to, I think, what you did before. What I would be also interested for founders that think about starting in a highly regulated industry, like some FinTech or something like that. What do you think is the biggest mindset shift that you need if you start in that category, like Air Wallex or Fanatics, for example?
FinTech is difficult to get into, man. Jack Sang started this company, I think it was about 10 years ago. And you got to do a lot of boring work first. You got to get a lot of licensing. Licensing is difficult to get. I think Air Wallex had 170 plus licenses. across the globe. And the more licensing you get, the easier it is to get in the next one. And by the way, 170, that's even more than Stripe, right? But at the end of the day, highly regulated markets like that, if you don't have like an actual backing, resources, and infrastructure, it's really difficult to get into. So, it depends on the size. At the end of the day, I'm not sure your audience is. If they're solopreneurs, they're bootstrapping this themselves. Just find something easy to get into first, and build that up. Eventually, you can pivot it. But I wouldn't recommend anybody get into fintech, honestly, if you're just by yourself, solopreneur, unless you want to have the intention of eventually getting bought out. And if that's the case, then find a wedge where, your Air Wallex or your Stripes or somebody else doesn't have yet. Try to, find an outlier within fintech that you could build. As a matter of fact, I've had some conversations with some people. Some are trying to build agentic layers that are kind of outside of the licensing realm. And in their mind, they're hoping to get acquired by a company like a Stripe or Airwallex or something like that. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, it's crucial to choose wisely before you get into anything. And honestly, just find something that interests you. Like at the end of the day, if you don't know anything about fintech, it's going to be really difficult to break into that mold.
And I mean, there's a reason why something like Stripe, it took a long time for it to come up. And the problem wasn't new. Right? A lot of online shops were building this payment infrastructure. Everybody was building payment infrastructure. I think what they did at Stripe is it's just incredibly hard to do to do it well. Like regulated, compliant at that scale is just very difficult. There's not so many who to touch these fields, and I think that's also to be appreciated. And same probably for Air Wallex. So yeah, that's also an interesting topic. When would you raise funding these days? I think we have talked like you probably don't need the typical pre-seed round to build a product anymore. AI has taken that away, I would say. I think if you can't build like an MVP, if you're talking software, obviously, you can't build an MVP bootstrap, then it will be challenging, I think. When should you raise? What do you think?
Not until you hit at least 2K MRR, 2 to 5K, I would say. Legit. I don't think anyone's even going to look at you before that, to be honest with you. These days, at least, they probably won't. Even if you have a really cool concept and really good MVP, if you don't have users, if you don't have 2 to 5K MRR, VCs won't even look at you these days.
Yeah, I agree. At least if you're a first-time founder and you have no relationship, right? So if you have a relationship or something, it's probably different. But if you're like trying to get through and you have no track record, and I also think, I mean, I often like to discuss this topic, and you have to understand that if you take venture capital, you set yourself on a quite clear track, right? Because the VCs, they want their return. They need the outliers. So they need you to grow at all costs and achieve the scale to be a fund returner. So that's why they gave you money in the first place. They didn't give it to you to be a dividend case. That's not what they are looking for. They look for some sort of exit where they can sell their shares and return money to their LPs. And I think that's also something you have to keep in mind, that from the second on, when you've taken the money from the VCs, you at least owe them to give it a try and become big. Like there's not just getting by and growing slowly will not cut it in that world.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. So like the days of, the SaaS model where you can build a user base, I think they're not over yet, but if your product is at least monetizable in the future, I think VCs would look at you, if you have a decent user base. But yeah, man, I mean, to your point, yeah, it's if you don't have a backing, if you're just kind of on your own and you don't have resources, you don't have a network, try to get MRR, try to start getting some revenue at the end of the day. And hey, I mean, again, like this kind of goes back to the ads thing that we were talking about, is like, you really got to laser focus on down funnel metrics and what's actually driving LTV. And so, for instance, at Air Wallex, historically, we always thought that our cards product was our primary driver. And then as soon as I got in there, I actually noticed that we were actually producing negative GP from our cards product. And I completely reallocated our budgets towards our business accounts and global accounts, which is really where our primary, LTV cohorts are coming from. But yeah, man, I mean, at this point, it's like, do something monetizable at the end of the day. If you're not doing that, honestly, VCs just won't look at you.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it seems to be even true for OpenAI and the OpenAI Anthropic group, because OpenAI now, it seems like, at least from what I'm reading, Anthropic has surpassed OpenAI in revenue now. Like if you go 1.5 years back, OpenAI was a big one. They had hundreds of millions of users, but they really, and Anthropic seemed to be a bit lost in the space. And they found they focused on B2B early on, but then they found the coding B2B environment, and they heavily leaned into it, and it just went into huge growth. And I think it's so much easier to monetize companies than it is to monetize consumers. That's what I feel like. And there's so few companies in the world who have reliably monetized consumers, like Google have and Facebook, yes, but there's so many others. And also, if you look at the large companies, there are just a lot that sell to businesses, like Salesforce or Microsoft. Also at large, a lot of what Microsoft does as business is B2B.
The thing is, though, man, is like, these are completely different models, man. If you think about it with Salesforce, if you think about, let's take Salesforce, for example, the onboarding process, even Air Wallex, actually, right? I mean, the whole onboarding, to get users to actually come on and then custom build out their own infrastructure is completely different from something like Google, where it's literally self-serve. You go on there, it doesn't matter if you're spending $5 a day on ads or $5,000 or $500,000. For them, it's the exact same thing in terms of resources. It's literally just a platform. You go in there, you're going to be in the auction insights, you're good to go. And then, of course, they'll give you account managers, et cetera. But with like a Salesforce, with anything else that requires like a Clay, where there's a custom build and an actual onboarding required, that's going to be way, way more different, way more resources than something like Google, where it's self-serve, and literally the more skill they get, it doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, what do you need? More server space, or more account managers? That's it. But you're not like custom building anything for any of these B2B companies. So yeah, I mean, that's another thing to consider, really. I mean, try to find something that is self-serve and it can scale easily. Unless, you're into kind of getting the resources and onboarding and that kind of stuff. If you have an infrastructure built out. But agreed.
Yeah, I think it's true, but it's really interesting. I've been watching these spaces a lot, and what I also found is that, at least of the B2C companies I know that became really big, none of them got big using ads. Like Facebook or Google, it's all organic growth. It's not through ad budgets or something like that. It's all word of mouth, and then growing over time and developing some sort of stickiness. Yeah, what do you think about that? It's just generally a lot harder in B2C to keep the users when you grow with ads, or what do you think?
I kind of disagree, respectfully. I feel like B2C actually relies on ads. At least at first. I mean, of course, word of mouth kind of gets around. Obviously, ChatGPT is a pretty good example of that. But I always take it back to like, if we're talking about B2C, something like e-commerce, software, in the beginning, you're really going to have to pump out ads. If you really want people to know who you are if you really want to differentiate yourself. B2B, I almost feel like is a little bit easier without ads, because if once you get one customer, one user that you've onboarded, from there, it's just about getting referrals. And then the referrals basically just start building your flywheel. So, it kind of goes back to what you said about connections, man. Like, I can't express how important it is to build a community, how important it is to start building out your connections like ASAP, and the right connections, right? I mean, people in your niche, people who could eventually become partners, investors, angel investors, VCs, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, for B2C, I would honestly say that ads is probably crucial in the beginning.
That's interesting. And then you would probably be back at I have to raise because you have to fund it and ads are expensive, right?
Yeah. So again, man, like I always feel like if you really have something in mind, if you really want to run with something, just start making money first. Work for some companies, preferably, high paying companies. And then, treat your 5 to 9 as a place to start your, whatever you're about to do. But yeah, man, I mean, to your point, it's at the end of the day, it's a flywheel. That's what we want. Right. And so to get that, it's like, do the stuff that doesn't scale first. If you have even one user, oh my gosh, treat them like a king or queen. And then eventually they'll start, telling their friends and everything else. And then, the flywheel starts building. And then once you start getting some more paying users, now you have a little bit of money to kind of get some employees, hire out some sales teams, hire out a content person to start building out your content. Then you can start focusing your time on the actual product and the actual infrastructure and partnerships and founder-led content marketing. And then, you start building out a little bit user base, start getting some recurring revenue. And then maybe you can approach an investor because, hey, we're growing fast, but we want to start, scaling ads. We know that this is going to work because of all the organic distribution we've been getting on this lately. We find this messaging works based off of our user feedback, our user research. At the end of the day, it's all about alignment. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
Today, I think the world, and we talk a lot about organic content, has become a lot more noisy with AI. I think before 2024, it was a lot easier, like in the pre-AI world, to generate thought leadership. These days, it's just really easy to create content. What would be a piece of advice for a founder now starting out to build an audience in an AI-saturated world?
Protect the mid-funnel leak. Protect it. And by that, I mean, post consistently on organic. I mean, these are free. You understand? Like TikTok is free. LinkedIn is free. These are free to post. Like if you're not posting 10 times, 50 times a day across these channels, you're missing out. Literally, you're missing out on so much distribution, and it's free. At the end of the day, you just pull out your phone, start recording something, post it on TikTok, on YouTube. TikTok especially, by the way, the distribution there is insane. A lot of other channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, pretty much every channel I can think of, they will limit your distribution to pretty much your follower base. TikTok, you can start one today and you could potentially have a video that hits like 1,000 views, 10,000, you can go viral. So don't underestimate those. And protect that mid-funnel leak, right? And so while you're kind of creating that content, definitely make sure that you're optimizing your landing pages for good CRO. Start thinking about upper funnel as well. But I would say protect the mid-funnel. And by that is, definitely put your resources into creating as much content as possible. At the end of the day, it's free,
Yeah. And also, what would you start with? Would you start building an audience first, or would you start building a product first? What do you think?
Audience. I'm a marketer at heart. Silicon Valley seems to think that software is dead. And I completely disagree with that. At the end of the day, the only variable that matters is how much value you bring to the marketplace and how effectively you communicate that. You can have the greatest products in the world. You could have probably built ChatGPT before that was even built, but if you have no audience to distribute that to, doesn't even matter. So start with the audience. Even if you don't really know necessarily what the product will be, directionally, you will eventually find that out. Keep that as your intention overall. But stick to your values. At the end of the day, just be authentic, stick to your values, and post the right kind of content, signal the right kind of stuff that would actually get you strategic partnerships later on. That doesn't mean like, shit posting and vibe posting and that kind of stuff. Eventually you can start doing that stuff too, but show value. At the end of the day, show value of your past, your credibility, your reputation, what you enjoy, what you think is probably the best solution, and start shifting your content and your distribution towards that. And eventually you'll probably be able to build up enough audience to eventually get a small user base. And then if you get a small user base, treat them like your literal lifeline, because they will then be personal advocates for you. And most importantly, they will be giving you the information that will make your product even better. So to answer your question, for sure, audience, for sure.
Really nice. And maybe final question. If people now got interested in Bloomberry, they want to try it, where will they find it?
Yeah, so go to bloomberry.ai. It's free to start. I highly recommend. I mean, if you're a founder and you're having difficulty with reach and distribution, you're very limited on your budget, kind of the stuff that we just talked about in terms of the lowest hanging fruit to start being able to distribute your ideas, your values. It's a good place to start. Look, if you're a founder, you're a solopreneur, you don't even have a LinkedIn or a Twitter, first start there. Just create every social account possible. It's cringe at first, but then it becomes consistent when you start posting. But I highly recommend it, really, any founder, solopreneur, entrepreneur, bloomberry.ai, create an account, start for free, and just start posting. Distribute your ideas. There is somebody out there who wants what you have. 1,000% there is. I know that. And so if you're not effectively communicating that, you'll never find them. So that's, I would say, to finally answer your question, bloomberry.ai, that's where you would start.
Saduk, thank you so much for being on. And you, my lovely listener, see you next time.
Nicholas, I appreciate you having me, man.